Hey there, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. It's DMG, and welcome back to Blitz. And today we are going to have a map guide on Canyon. I believe this is one of the simpler maps in the game, and it's pretty easy to understand once you know where to go. That being said, there of course are a few quirks that I think are important to show off. Let's get right into it. Now, the Canyon map was designed probably, I think this marks when this was introduced, it marks a new style of map, in my opinion, that has since gone on and changed the meta. Maps like this and Mayan Ruins are quite similar in the sense that they have a very important point on the map that's in the middle. Usually, uh, players would find on maps like Winter Malinovka and Rockfield that a lot of it would be flank play. Going left or right and fighting on a flank, trying to win that flank is super important on those maps. But on this map, flanks aren't all that really important. It's more about controlling the middle area. Now, what that means is going up to the middle ridge, whatever side you are on. It does not matter which side, but it does matter um, the kind of spots you can get across. But okay, here we are, Canyon. The middle area is simply the most important area in the map. On any game mode, it could be either encounter or supremacy. Controlling this middle area from, what is this, the north side right here, doing this, rocking back and forth, getting shots across as they try and cross. That's a lot of cross, right? Anyways, on the other side, it's pretty much the same thing. If you start over in that spawn right there, we're going to turn around like this, and let's say we drive up here, bang. People trying to drive across. What's really nice about this side is that you have this bush right here, and you're able to put shots across and have a silhouetted armor profile. This does work best for tanks with, I don't know, somewhere in the 6 to 8 degrees of gun depression kind of range. That being said, you don't want to poke up too far, because when you try to get super greedy and poke up too far, you'll most likely get hit by the tanksters that are camping in the back. This goes for both sides, and I will explain all the little ins and outs of each and how to counter this middle area. But if you take nothing else away from this video, note that this area is simply the most important area of the map in the game, no matter the game mode. Now, should you go here in a light tank? Yes. Should you go here in a medium tank? Yes. Should you go here in a heavy tank? Yes. Now, there are a few exceptions to that, and to include tanksters as well, I do think that they can work up here. However, tanksters do have a slight bit of use on this map in the more campy areas of the game, which counter the hill, actually. But let's say for rear-mounted heavies like the VKB and the FV215B, the IS-2SH, those don't really work up here so well, or like the mouse. It's not really what you want to be bringing up here. Tanks that have super large profiles are not too great, but let's say if you bring an IS-7 up here, that works fantastic. Medium tanks like at tier 8, think about your Indian Panzers and your Pershings. They can easily work up here with 10 degrees of gun depression even though you don't really need all that much. If, say, you're in a tier 7 game, heavy tanks like the T-29 can easily dominate top tier matchups from this area and will easily be able to hold their own against any other tank firing at it because of the strong turret. Having a strong turret and a strong front haul really makes this small little microenvironment a perfect place for heavies. This goes on the same side as well. You get different kinds of shots, or similar kinds of shots. Something that I think is really important to discuss here is that from this side, looking at this area right here where people are going to be driving across, they're most likely going to be driving behind these train cars right here. So you'll be able to put shots under these train cars like that and be able to pen their drive wheels or their sides should you get the opportunity. Or if you don't feel comfortable, and sometimes I don't feel comfortable doing it either, I'll just wait until they pop and fire through. Back to what I was trying to say about something really important to note is that keep in mind the distance between this spot and that red line over there where people or tanks like the cross is much longer than the distance between the other side and this right here. You will almost always, I mean, you would take a ridiculously fast RU with engine boost to get across before you get up here with your medium tank and miss out on that spot. Anything else, even tanksters, you will be able to spot them coming across. There is nothing that will really evade your gaze. However, on the other side, this is different, as you will not be able to spot everything that comes across. Even low-profile heavy tanks like the IS-7 can sometimes slip under in a Tier 10 match and get all the way across to this area at C in a supremacy matchup and will sometimes elude your view range. So please be aware of that, as one side is better than the other for engaging heavies across. Now, as far as counters go, this side is a little bit harder to counter than the other side. So one side gets the better spots, but it is easier to counter. And keep in mind on this side right here, there is less room to work. There is not all that much you can do. You have this very small area to work within, whereas the other side, you really have this nice wide open kind of ridge to really use to your advantage. Just kind of take a look at this terrain and see or note the differences between the north side and the south side areas in the middle. It really is quite a terrain difference, as really you can fit 2 tanks up here, but you can only really fit 1 comfortably up here without clogging on the north side, or excuse me, the south side. Anyways, how to counter this spot? You usually use tank destroyers. I think that this side is much easier to counter because while you get these opportunities, and some people like to poke up like this and fire across, but it leaves them quite vulnerable to shots. And I'm going to show off a really cheeky position right now that you'll be able to counter. Actually, I will show that sometime in the next 20 seconds, as it looks like we are almost out of time. But to kind of recap this little segment, please try and note the differences between, even though they're so subtle, note the differences between the middle area. You know, the bushes are different. You know, this bush that you just saw to my left right there is not as effective as, let's say, the bush on the other side. Just the kind of shots you can get, just how much it's covering your tank, how much camouflage rating you're getting from it. All those can really be factors in how effective that spot is going to be for you. And of course, don't take rear-mounted tanks up here. That's probably the one thing that I wouldn't try up here. I've taken things like the J Panther, the T25AT, the Jagdtiger up in this area, and they have worked beautifully if you can play it right. Emphasis on play it right. Anyways, so let's say I am starting on the north side. So I am a T6 Dracula, and I am bombing it to this middle area to try and get my spots off real quick. How to counter this area is when I try and poke up. Some people get really greedy and they'll try and poke up to get shots through here, like through these little gaps in the bridge or the railroad bridge right here. And when they do that, the side of their turret, you notice the right side of my turret is exposed to the other side in the spawn. So if I'm in an SU-152, or I would never drive an SU-152, but if I were in a Borsig looking at a Dracula or an ISU-152, now we're really talking about some serious alpha. If you can get all the way up here, and I know it doesn't look like much, but look at this elevation right here. Try and get your tankster lodged up onto this small little ridge right here. Now this will allow you to get shots at a more level kind of plane at light tanks, medium tanks, anything that is really willing to turn their turret. And with the Borsig, you have uber high heat penetration, so you will or even with the ISU, you have that superior APCR penetration and actually fantastic standard round penetration. So you'll be able to go through pretty much anything that pokes through here. Now note the difference here. I want you to see what it looks like this. So have a look and see how I am level with those railroad tracks going across the middle of B. Now this allows me, right, because since I'm on a level plane, this flattens armor. Now if I was below for some reason, which is what a lot of people do, it really makes the armor more difficult to shoot at. This is what a lot of people do, and I can see how it can work for some tank destroyers like the Grill or even the 183. But think about how difficult this is for an SU-152 to hit a shot through this bush when you are poking up. Now, unless you turn unless the T6 Dracula in this example turns their side turret very much to you and shows you a very broad area for you to shoot, hitting this shot is very difficult. Anything with armor, let's say the Indian Panzer, the Panther II is even difficult to penetrate when it pops up around this area. Think about this in Tier 10 as well. You have tanks like the M48 Patton, the M60, the E50M that are poking around this area. Even the IS-7 can be quite dangerous around that area. So this is not as effective as you could be. Going all the way back here and setting your net also gives you a few more meters distance in that view range. Let's see from here to here, that is about 30 extra, 29, right? 29 to 30 extra, let's just say 30 extra meters between you and the opposition. That may make the difference between you getting spotted or not. So keep that in mind when playing your tank destroyers. That is pretty much where you want to go at the start of the game for the north side. On the south side, when you're playing your tank destroyers and you want to counter this area that I am in right now, you want to be all the way across the map. It is not right in the spawn, but it is somewhat close, and you don't have to drive very far. I do think that this is better for turretless tank destroyers, actually. Tanks like the Grill won't be as effective here. I do think tanks like the Object 704, Object 263, Jagdtiger 88 will be uber good in this scenario. J-Panther 2 I have tested in Tier 8 tournaments, and it has worked like a charm right here. So if you go right here and use this bush, you will be able to put shots all the way across at anyone trying to cap B. And let me tell you, they actually do pop up here. It's not something where you'll always get just a little bit of a turret. People will actually try and poke their hull all the way over here, and they normally don't see it. This is a very dangerous spot for a tank destroyer to be in, especially one that has some decent gun arc or has a little bit of armor, right? Think about a Jagdtiger right here. It has a little bit of armor, and it has this bush in front of it, so it can really easily abuse it with a high rate of fire. Good camouflage. And if it does get spotted, it does have that armor to bounce that incoming fire should it receive it. Something else that you can do to counter the north side. If you want to counter the north side middle, another area you can use is right here. What this allows you to do in medium tanks is be able to fire at all the people that are poking up in this area around here. And I'm not talking about on this side, I'm talking about on the other side, all the way over there. So if they're on the other side and they're poking up like this and they're just poking over the middle, you'll be able to see them and fire across. Easy shots, easy farm. Now, that doesn't really exist on the other side. If you want to counter, if you want to counter the south side, this is where you want to be actually. Now, by doing this, this gives you shots right under this little bridge right here, and you'll be able to put shots at people poking right here, and just you'll get these really small, even minuscule amounts of weak armor to be able to penetrate. So make sure you have an accurate gun when doing so. Don't try and snapshot it. It's not the best idea. But you see, I am able to fire through these really tiny gaps. The better spot actually to do this is through here. This is extremely dangerous, and you will see all along right here this little ramp that I was at before. When people rock back and forth and they, all they have is this rock for cover. So either they hug this rock and avoid you and don't get a lot of shots, or they take some damage as they rock back and forth trying to micro down the opponent. So being able to come through here and put shots is extremely important. But keep in mind since you're trying to counter the south side from the north side, this means you have to attack. It's not like the south side, which has a built-in counter to counter the other side, whereas this one you actually have to move and attack for it. So really, those are the only two counters that exist in the game, and they're both located on the C side. And unfortunately, that is quite unfortunate. It inherently makes one side better than the other, but it really is how you play it. I think there are a few other things I want to show off about the middle area, and it does deal with, again, the south side again. So if we go to the south side in the middle, you'll notice there is an opportunity to put shots across at people crossing. Um, this does happen on both sides, but it is extremely showcased on one side more than the other. So let's actually go to the other side, and we're going to show off the great extreme first. So I already explained how to get shots across here. People cross and you simply have a shooting gallery. Something else that you can do if you have a tank with good gun depression and strong turret, that's really at your own discretion. But if you do this, you'll be able to put shots at people crossing. Either people go to the middle, they cross this way, or they cross over here going to the C base. So they either go either A, B, or C, and I know that's pretty self-explanatory, but if they're not at A or B, right, and you spot up here immediately, and you don't see anyone crossing, you know exactly where they're going. So you know they're going to C at this point. And this way, you look like this, people will start driving. You can put in a few good shots like this, especially if there's no destroyers. Keep in mind, no destroyers is important here, right? Or I wouldn't say no destroyers, but no destroyers sitting up in that back perch. That could be quite dangerous. But you can try and do this. You can wiggle just a little bit and be able to put in shots, especially if you're in a fast medium tank. You can really harass people and prevent them from climbing to the C base from the north spawn. And it will really help your team win the game. Being able to put in shots all around this area, people will try and poke just barely out of here, and you'll be able to easily put shots into them. Consider that your armor is above them, making it inherently stronger, so this will mean that you will come out better on most of these trades, unless, of course, you are having a high alpha gun stare you down and you're, let's say, in a Comet, right? Even though the Comet has 12 degrees of gun depression, I really wouldn't want to be looking at a Lurver unless I was ready to load gold and spam it. Anyways, that is the good part about this side, or I wouldn't say the side. Let's use spawns. The south spawn is that it carries both areas to counter, and it has the ability to look at both pathways to cross. Now, I would say this is more safer than the other side, which I'm about to show you, because you can counter somewhat in the north spawn area. Now, there's a few different things you can do. If you're in a decently camouflaged tank that doesn't get spotted easily and has a good reverse speed, so this is not meant for E5s with terrible reverse speed or E4s. Now, if you're like this, you can use this bush to get some camouflage, and if people cross, bang, have a shot across, and you will get some early damage, set the engagement in your favor. If you have Groot, that's a Marvel character, great gun depression, this will allow you to poke like this, and you can see the LTTB, and I'm using the second gun, actually, if you look at it. This only has 7 degrees of gun depression, and this is not doing the job. So you really have to be at least 10 degrees of gun depression. This is like your STBs, M60s, maybe even the M48 if you can get away with it. But keep in mind, should you do this, you are exposing your side to fire from the spawn, from heavy tanks, fire from the tank stir bush, which is right over there, and of course anyone that decides to get a lucky pen on you that is crossing. However, in the STB, really easy to pop up here and spot, use 10 degrees of gun depression, fire at someone here, reload as they cross right here, fire at them again. Most likely your shots are going to come from this little area to this little area right here is where you're going to get most of them. I find that you can get shots like this, but it is quite difficult. This is probably going to be your most rich little farm area is right here as people try and cross you can usually get shots on 2 different tanks if you have a quick reload. But like I said, when you pop right here, this is more exposed than on the other side, so you're really taking a big risk like this, so you have to be very quick and clean about it. Don't linger and tarry around there, as you will pay the price. Now, from the other side, if we look at it like this, I can look right here, and I can look like this. But as you can see, I am naturally much lower, and I'm showing noticeably much less of my turret, so this definitely makes it the better side. So I would say for encounter and supremacy, it's all about controlling this middle area. It really isn't much about the flanks. It's important to send people out there, but if you don't control the middle, then you really lose out on a serious power position. I'm really surprised at this day and age of how many people still just simply go to the sides and try and flank when you can go to half the distance and simply make a mess of everybody in this position. Even the Borsig can work right here with its fantastic camo. Now there are some other spots that I do want to show off real quick. They aren't as important, but it still is very, very good should you happen to go the flank, because really not everything is meant for that hill, even though I would say 95% of the tanks in the game can play it. Now in this area, you always see the buildings, right? You have lots of side scraping opportunities. Really, any one of these buildings will do. Let's just have a quick example right here. I'm side scraping against enemy heavies in my IS-4. Really simple stuff right here to simply go like this and pop out like that and have shots across. Pretty easy stuff right there. Something else on the north side, which can be quite profitable should you be in a tankster, good medium, or even a heavy that has a decent front plate, is to go right here. There is a bush that is absolutely fantastic if you can wedge yourself in this position. And the enemies pop, and keep in mind this is highly dependent on what the enemy does, but should they go to the middle, you can poke out like this in your IS-7 or IS-4, and granted the LTTB isn't the best example as it is a little bit shorter than both of those tanks, but as you can see right here, I can kind of cover my front like this, especially in an IS-4. I'm angling, it's naturally angling itself out as I poke like this, and I'm able to fire shots across at anyone who pokes. But keep in mind, go here, but at the same time, if you go here and enemies are in the middle, you basically locked yourself in that position. So keep in mind that, if you commit to that, that's pretty much where you're going to be until you clear them out or they clear you out. Also note that that position is counterable with blind shots from the south side TD counter position that I showed you to counter the north side. Too many directions, right? It's a little too much to keep track of at some points in the game. That's really all about the town area. There's not much back here. There is this slight little rock right here which you can use. You can set a grill, even an E4. Even though I'm not a big fan of the E4, you can really use this to your advantage. And if people try and push your middle area from that arch on the other side, you'll be able to put in shots around here. And of course, not reverse side scrape, but grill, right? Rear mount turret, easy shots across in that area. Whenever you're driving, try not to go through that water. That really slows you down. Definitely not a good place to get stuck right there, because if you get spotted and you receive incoming fire, it's very hard to get out without losing about 75% of your HP. Something that you want to learn about here, this is best for Russian tanks, and I know that's Russian bias at work, but keep in mind how the IS-7 naturally fits into this terrain. Look at how this small little rise goes up like this. Perfect for an IS-7 to go haul down and absolutely bully tanks like I hate to say it, E100 and even the Mouse. You can really put the hurt on a lot of tanks in this area while capping the base, while still getting here first because you are in a Russian tank. Same goes for the other side as well, but really, this sea area is truly meant for Russian tanks. Russian heavies in particular will get the job done. or even I would say your German medium like your E50M, especially because they can use this spot to then counter the other side. You still get that good frontal armor profile and can maintain a fantastic profile against anything that comes to the sea base to engage you. There's really not much to speak of actually on these flanks. It's not all that crazy. Um, all the way back here, there's not really much you can do. There, you can sit back in the spawn and try and snipe away at anyone who pokes super hard over B, but that doesn't happen too often. It's often just used as a security measure in competitive matches, just to make sure that middle guy doesn't get rushed. But in publics, that's not really going to be the case. Of course, you have this hill right here, the one that I'm scoping in on, and the next hill right there. These are really good for German tanks as well. This is where you want to bring your E100 actually, because what you can do is you can not only side scrape off this rock like this, which keeps your turret covered for oncoming enemies trying to rush through A, but you can also turn like this and get shots all the way down this channel right here. This is super good for the E100 as you can basically keep your hull covered and wiggle your turret back and forth. Again, you get the same kind of deal right here. You get this fantastic rock right here to side scrape off of, and this hill to cover your weak lower plate and area under the side skirts. So really good spot for E100s, mice, and the like. Anywhere around there is very, very strong. But really, that is all about Canyon. There really isn't too much to this map. One more thing that I do want to show you, and it only exists on the north side. So the north side does get something good back compared to the countering spots on the south. So the good part about the north is that if you are in a fast enough tank to get here, I know Bushka has shown this spot off in some of his videos, but if you can spot like this, you'll get a great read on all the enemies that are trying to cross into the middle. It will give you a good idea of what numbers are going where and give a good idea of where is their weak link and where can you rush. Having that kind of information early game can really make the difference in a match, especially if you are in a platoon. Being able to focus fire down a target when you see an isolated target going to C, or you see most of them going to A and B, can really make the difference and turn the tide in the fight, which will allow you to take the counter position from the north side as such to focus firing a target at C and taking the counter position to then whittle down the enemies at B in this kind of snowball effect. But that is quite scripted, and I know all battles don't play out like that, but having this information will help you kind of mold the battles into that familiar script and create the same consistent scenario for yourself to win again and again and again. I cannot actually recount how many times I've gotten masteries on this map by going to the middle, spotting everybody in the tank that I'm in, and then being able to put out massive damage numbers in said tank. This tank, I would probably say, is a very good mastery map, almost in the same sense as Dead Rail, as there is a middle area that is abusable, and it will be very, very good for you to go here and absolutely annihilate the enemy. Anyways, guys, that's Canyon. Like I said, if you take nothing else away from this video, just know that the middle is important. That's where you want to be the whole time. Should you leave the middle, it should be to chase down something that's isolated, but keeping that power position and keeping that consistent pressure, I would say, is uber important for winning this map. Trying to really play the flanks is not what you want to do, and you end up wasting more time trying to maneuver around the edges than you can by just engaging in the middle. So, hey, that's Canyon for you. If you found this content helpful, please give it a like, and if you didn't, please leave your criticism in the comments. I know that you want to see more real-world application with actual gameplay. I know I do have some masteries on that, but I think I have found a solution for that, and I will talk about that later in the videos. I know some of you guys have been asking for map reviews that are more recently introduced into the game. This one was the next on the list, and I wanted to get it out of the way for you guys. I know some people do struggle with Canyon, and I wanted to make this blatantly clear on what should happen. Anyway, guys, that's all for today, and thank you for allowing me to share my passion with you today, and I hope to see you next time.